Coming up on today's show, Ryan and Travis talk about WrestleMania weekend.
NXT ratings get a bump.
Another championship match scheduled for next week's Dynamite.
Evilise says she's been released.
Fight TV has been acquired.
Steve Austin goes on Talk is Jericho.
Travis attempts Backlash 2002 trivia and more on this episode of the Daily Wrestling News Show.
We're back, baby!
We are back. This is the Daily Wrestling News for April 15th, 2021. We are powered by the Eastern Observer. My name is Ryan Joy, and I'm coming to you live from Minutes to Bell Time Studio on the beautiful Treasure Coast of the Sunshine State. And I am joined today by the salesman of fun, Travis Severance. Travis, Al really wants you to get you a new nickname. Any thoughts on that?
Oh, boy, I don't know. Maybe we can do like a poll. He doesn't like salesman of fun. That's okay.
I think he wants it to be more wrestling related.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. We could definitely work on that. I could think about that for sure. Toss some ideas around. I'll have to think about that. I've kicked around what my in-ring name has been a couple of times, but I've never thought about my wrestling nickname. So, I'm open. I'm open to suggestions.
Well, we have a lot to talk about because the first thing in our cold open is talk about WrestleMania weekend. You and I were there, and it was kind of a long weekend that started on a Wednesday and ended on a Monday morning, like early in the morning. So we have a lot to kind of digest from that experience. And then we still have all the regular news and stuff that came out of Dynamite and stuff last night. So let's dive in. We're here a half hour early. So Travis, we went to Dynamite last Wednesday. It was your first Dynamite of the pandemic era. It kicked off our whole WrestleMania set of events. What did you think of how Dynamite was set up?
So I thought the setup was great. I thought our seats were great. We had a really good view from where we were sitting. There was plenty of space. I thought the social distancing was definitely there. Masks were up. It was really, really nice to be back live in Dynamite after we had gone to kind of so many of them before everything got shut down. So it was a great experience overall. I enjoyed the show as well, and I brought a bunch of signs with me and got some of the signs on the air, and that's the best I can hope for.
Yeah, I think that's a takeaway for me, that if you go to Dynamite during this era where there's just not as many people in the crowd, your signs, they stand out a lot more. And even the cameraman came over to you ahead of time and said, you might want to point them toward the ring, but point them kind of toward me. So
yeah, he's looking for people to shoot. So if you do go to Dynamite and you bring something along with you and you're anywhere as near a cameraman, they're going to try to get you on because they want to try to make the crowd look bigger. I could tell, and we had kind of talked about it on the drive, like they've been running that show every other week in Daly's Place, and the market is only so big. I think now with that traveling's opening up a little bit more, I think you're going to see maybe a little bit of a bump in the crowd and stuff like that, just because you're going to have people coming into Florida from out of state and stuff during their, doing their summer vacations and stuff. So you'll have some fresh blood that'll move in there. But I thought the crowd was lively and the show was really good.
Yeah. No complaints there. And then, so then after Dynamite, we get in the car and we take the 3.5-hour trip to Tampa, where we spent the rest of the weekend. And, we were in the WrestleCon hotel, so we had plenty of interaction, not really interactions, a little bit here and there, but we ran into people. But we spent the majority of our non-WrestleMania weekend at the Game Changer Wrestling Collective Remix. And I'm calling it Sunburn Edition.
Wow, really? I know that if the beautiful Treasure Coast, and then we moved over, and we got scorched. So I don't think any of us were prepared. I know we weren't prepared for the venue being outside in a parking lot. Now when we got there, it sort of made some sense. Yep. There was a lot of space. They had a lot of space to do setup and production and stuff, but I was not expecting being outside in very hot Florida heat with my pasty white, I haven't seen the sun since last August skin.
Yeah, that was crazy. I went back and looked at the text I sent you. The text I sent Travis on like Monday of last week was that was the entirety of our weather planning for the weekend. And it was something along the lines of, this is the temperature in Jacksonville and it might rain on Saturday and Sunday. Never did we think for a second that we were going to be outside all weekend watching the Collective.
Right.
Otherwise we would have had, a straw hat or something.
Mm-hmm. And the whole thing was super interesting. So I kind of gave the ball completely to Ryan and said, the area, the different people that are down there, pick something out. And he kind of jumped on the Collective, which was this massive package of a ton of different themed shows with a bunch of indie talent stretched over the course of 3 or 4 days. And as things kind of got close to WrestleMania, more and more and more of those types of shows were announced. Maybe not. I don't think anybody really was running as large of a package as what we got. And for the value that we got for as much wrestling as you could watch, it was hard to beat. And the names on the shows and what we got to see was interesting and different. There were some other shows around the area that would have been nice to catch if we had different timing or stuff like that. But the thing is, if you're going to go to one of the big four, if you're going to SummerSlam or WrestleMania or Royal Rumble or Survivor Series, if you have time to go in ahead of time, take a look around. There's indie shows galore. If you go in for a couple of days and you want to do some sightseeing at wherever the city ends up being, which they tend to be fairly, populated cities, you've got all this opportunity to catch a bunch of talent that's either on the come, or you'll see some guys that you haven't seen in a little while. We ended up seeing Chavo Guerrero. We ran into him at the hotel, actually. And, there's a whole bunch of people at our hotel, but it was a really nice presentation.
Yeah, I think so. And a couple of I know some people are itching to hear some stories from this weekend. So the one thing I think is like most story worthy for me was we were watching Chris Dickinson versus Joey Janela on the spring break show. And Chris Dickinson rolls out of the ring and he says, "Get me a chair." And nobody from the crew gave him a chair. So he just pulled one out of the front row. And then it was basically like, "Get me another chair." And he pulls another one out. And next thing you knew, every fan in that section picked up their chair and threw it in the ring. Poor Joey Janela is like dodging chairs as they're getting tossed into the ring. It got kind of out of control. And finally, the staff had to come over and be like, "Stop throwing your chairs."
Yeah, it was throwback ECW stuff for sure. That used to be a hallmark of their hardcore matches. They'd call for chairs, and there's a video that you can see where they're just tossing chairs in the ring. I think it's Tommy Dreamer against Bubba Ray. It's just chairs piled up, and that we literally got to see that live.
It was a little chaotic, and I was, they could have. The interesting thing about that situation is you're like 1 or 2 seconds, or somebody saying the wrong thing, and all those people are also going to be in the ring. It's kind of nuts.
Mm-hmm.
So we were close to like a minor riot there. In no kidding. So
yeah, it was super interesting.
We were in the front row in a different section. Nobody in our group threw the chairs in, which is good because all those people that threw the chairs in, they've stood for the rest of the show.
Yeah, the staff came over, and after the match was done, instead of handing the chairs back to them, they swept them all back under the ring and said, "Well, you're going to play stupid games, you're going to get stupid prizes," and that's how that ended up going. And
it was the thing super FU too, because they pulled all the chairs out on that side of the ring that they were sitting on and put them under the ring.
Yeah, it was. And after that match was going to be a hardcore death match, which there was going to be glass tubes and all the kinds of craziness that was going on. So the chairs weren't going to be in great shape after that match either. So yeah, it was a rough night for them. But you know what? You got to penalize them in some way. I give them props for not kicking them out of the venue, because that was the talent kind of calling them for that. And when I talked to the promoter after the next day, she's like, "Yeah, that's kind of just a GCW thing." So they kind of rolled with it, which was really cool. My big thing for that show was getting to see the Bloodsport by Josh Barnett. Just a super interesting way to do a show. If you're an MMA fan and you like wrestling, it's basically the best of both worlds. It's straight hardcore, shoot fight style with no ropes in the ring. And for me, I think the event of the show was the Moxley Barnett match. Both guys ended up really bloody at the end of the match, and Mox took a loss, which doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but he hasn't taken very many losses, and in a clean loss at that, with a ref stoppage on that show. So that was a hell of a match, and just seeing that style was really nice and different than anything else that we had seen for the weekend, for sure.
I think you hit the nail on the head with the crossover element, right? Is that if you're an MMA fan, this is going to appeal to you is sort of a worked MMA fight. If you're a wrestling fan who likes MMA, this probably also appeals. But if you're a wrestling fan that doesn't really like MMA, it might also appeal to you in the sense that, like, I'm not a huge MMA guy because I know it's real. I don't really care for that aspect of it. But this is it's really stiff. It's hard hitting, and hopefully nobody gets too hurt. So
I think the only people that probably wouldn't enjoy it is the MMA purist. Yes. If you're an MMA purist and you want to see technical jiu-jitsu and you want to see, real lockups and submissions and stuff like that, about half of the people had an MMA or a Muay Thai background or something like that, and the other half are just wrestlers that wanted to wrestle in this more different style. So some of the guys with their holds and stuff like that is going to be the stuff that you're used to seeing, and the other ones are a little bit more sloppy as far as what you're going to see. But in general, if you're not an MMA purist that wants to hold them to it, then the presentation's really different and really fun.
The other thing about that show is that everybody was a big name, pretty much. Some of the undercard matches might not have known people, but Chris Dickinson, John Moxley, Josh Barnett, Leo Rush, Rocky Romero, Chavo Guerrero. And even, I knew the Savage Gentleman, and you knew the woman from
Masha Slamovich. Yeah. Yep.
So between the two of us, we knew most everybody on the card.
Davey Boy Smith Jr. was on the card too. He was doing all the Hall of Fame stuff for his dad this weekend and stuff. So he popped in. So Josh has got pretty good pull. Obviously people respect what he's putting on, and he got those people together to do that. And, it's something that I'm going to go back and catch up on I want to see I'm positive that there's been some evolution to it from 1 through 6. I certainly went and bought the t-shirt as well. So, really good overall.
As well. So that's that. And the other thing, we had watched early in the 100-degree weather we were sitting in, we had watched Aramis versus Ares. And that match, we both kind of took note of those guys and we're like, wow, that was an amazing lucha match. And then during the spring break show, we got to see them again alongside Gringo Loco, Black Taurus, Laredo Kid, and Dragonbane in a 6-man match that just, that stole the night. If it was, there's a couple other high moments, but that match was incredible.
Yeah, it's it was almost like Laredo Kid had brought these 3 luchas in with him to kind of do the events, because they were sprinkled throughout the other shows and stuff like that. If you haven't seen Era Strange work, if you haven't seen Aramis, if you haven't seen Dragonbane, do yourself a favor, look them up on Instagram or try to catch them on a YouTube or something like that. These are guys that probably should be working in some of the major companies right now. Man, the dancing and the in-ring work was absurd. And Gringo Loco and Black Taurus did a great job as well. But yeah, what a 6-man.
The thing about the one-on-one match with Aramis and Ares, they did some spots, right? They did some high-flying stuff, but mostly what I took away was the speed. They were just so fast in their transitions and things like that. And countering in and out and stuff. So great stuff.
Yeah, it's super fast, super quick. And then the other thing too is it's not uncommon at the end of a lucha match for you to throw some cash in the ring to show their appreciation. So every time they were in a match where it was all luchas, the crowd piled in dollar bills, just tossed them into the ring. So they left with a giant hat full of additional money to take back with them. And that's just kind of the crowd respecting and appreciating the art, and it was awesome.
Yeah, you don't, as in the American area, you don't really get to see too often where the fans are tipping.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
So that's kind of cool.
Yep.
So then WrestleMania, it was your first.
It was. It was a wet and wild one. Man, what a difference. So we go from roasting our skin off for a couple of days out in the parking lot, to coming in with weather warnings essentially, and
trying to time the walk from the car to the arena so that we didn't get wet
just
before we got
dumped
here.
on, So, the first night walking in, uh, I changed my T-shirt. I ended up buying a zip-up hoodie and like had to change everything over because it was pretty wet in there, and grabbed a $5 poncho and stuff, and kind of made it through. But yeah, overall, it it wasn't necessarily the collection of the matches themselves or the 2-day special or anything like that. I think the thing that got me the most about this show was in the beginning of the first night, Vince brought all the talent out, and we're standing in that crowd. And when you think about all the stuff that's gone on in the world and different things like that, and with the exception of the Super Bowl, we're there with 25,000 wrestling fans, which is the largest gathering in the country in a long, long time. And you see talent that's out there. They're so excited and they're so emotional about it that they're in tears to see the fans, and just to be able to sit in that kind of, we're all here, we're all happy, we're all celebrating wrestling, we're excited to see this thing happen, just felt like a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm positive it didn't translate to the home audience because I saw and maybe I'm a little biased and is with regard to how good I thought the show was overall. And it certainly had a lot to do with being in those seats live, for sure.
Yeah, it was a spectacle, though. I mean, it's one of those things where, I think that I've been to many shows with better matches in recent memory, but there's a certain feeling of being at WrestleMania, and they do so much with the pyro and the elaborate entrances and everything, and they try hard to give you the either the moment that's going to make you feel really good, or the moment that's going to like get underneath your skin. And for some people it was the same moment, but but you're meant to be leaving with a feeling. And I think they delivered. I really do. After a year of not having any live audiences, I think they took this moment in time to really kind of celebrate wrestling. So
yeah, I mean, it certainly wasn't without its flaws as far as like the environment, and there were some disappointments on my side about that, the way that the WWE handled it, I guess, as opposed to what AEW decided to handle with regard to AEW. Gosh, it felt like every other announcement after a match was Justin Roberts saying, listen, you got to put your mask on, you got to have your mask over your nose. There's ushers that were coming down to make sure that people, if they weren't eating or drinking, had their masks on, and it was a lot more safe environment for that. Inside WrestleMania, we went for 8 hours of wrestling. There wasn't a single announcement during the entire process about masks or anything like that. And the floor seat people in this giant scrum melee in and out both days, masks were like optional. I didn't see anybody get told they should put a mask on. I didn't see any attention paid to that at all. So as far as safety goes and concern for COVID and that kind of thing, it certainly felt like the AEW family had that well under control, better than WWE. And I think if we speak to the way that it's gone through one locker room versus another, that's probably the way that the focus of the company's been. Just not as much of a concern as with regard to safety, which was too bad to see. I would say that was probably the worst part of my WrestleMania experience.
yeah, and I think I mentioned that on this show with John DeConnie earlier this week that it's the other thing is there's 25,000 people at WrestleMania and there's like 800 at Dynamite, and there's a much higher staff to fan ratio.
Without a doubt.
But in some cases I'm just making excuses. So
yeah, I mean, it just there was plenty of time when they went off air, they were doing a vignette or something. They could have flashed something up on the many monitors or something like that, or actively reminded. But I mean, they were shooting fans in scenes after matches without masks, so it was like there's almost a level of promotion at that point not to have your mask on. Like, look at that guy got on camera. They didn't have a mask on and they didn't seem to care about it. So, yeah, I think that was the most challenging and maybe the most frustrating part of the experience for me.
Yeah, that and getting sunburnt to crisp at GCW. Those two things.
Yeah, those were kind of rough. I mean, the weather, whatever, but yeah, as far as the matches go and stuff like that, I thought if I was going to go back and I was going to look at the two matches that stood out the most to me, it'd certainly be Bianca Sasha, and it would be Cesaro and Seth Rollins. by far. Those were the best quality matches that I saw. I thought they told the best story. As far as matches that I felt could have been better, Rhea and Asuka just didn't feel like they were on the same page, or they didn't feel like they were comfortable with each other. And I think I was disappointed with the Sammy and Kevin Owens match. Just did not have the same feel that some of their other previous matches had.
Feel good moment at the end though with the stunner to Logan Paul.
Sure. Yep. Perfectly fine. And then I had no problem with Roman retaining in that match. Obviously, the crowd was loud about it, and he's a top guy there. And
I had an issue. It caused me the championship in Pro Wrestling Pick'em. So
yeah, but if we go off of averages, you're way ahead. So we got to talk to them about average points per event and see where you would have been at.
All right. Well, let's hit some of the news of the last day, 24 hours or so. So, ratings are in for a couple of shows this week. I'm really interested this week in ratings. I've said that a few times, but Raw got 2,026,000 viewers. The first time they broke 2 million since January 4th. That's coming off of WrestleMania. NXT coming off of Stand and Deliver. They got 806. That's up from 768 last week, but up from 654 the week before. So they did get a bump going unopposed. It's the highest they've been since Halloween Havoc. So
it'll be interesting to see. So this week is interesting because I think you're going to see the rub from the pay-per-views, right? Like yes. I know people that can't wait for the Raw after Mania. Now I also know those people that were not blown away by the Raw after Mania compared to years in the past. And the Raw after Mania used to be the really big deal. I mean, last year obviously, but them changing everything and stuff like that, I don't think anybody had the expectation that it was going to blow them away. But 2 years ago, and the different stuff that we've seen with all kinds of craziness, it wasn't there. There was some nice, it was good to see the Raiders back and different things like that. But overall, I thought it was just kind of just a decent Raw. And then with NXT, I thought NXT actually had kind of more things going on coming off of Stand and Deliver, and more stuff happening between Taya coming back and Roderick and the different changes. And I thought Hunter took a hell of a good approach because he knew there were going to be some eyeballs. Now 768 from Stand and Deliver to 802 or whatever it was. I mean,
it's not huge. Now, what I'm curious though is to see the
32,000. I want to see next week.
Yeah, like if it starts to, it's hard to do because my image is reversed. But if it starts to go up, then I think we're good. If it starts to go down, then that would be frustrating.
I think I'm most interested to see what happens to AEW. If for no other reason than they did nothing.
Yeah,
everybody else had spectacular, crazy things going on and stuff like that. AEW said we're just going to run a normal Dynamite with an announced Mike Tyson, which I can't imagine does a ton of work for that needle in general. But just a standard regular AEW Dynamite, no special Fighter Fest or anything like that. And it'll be interesting to see without NXT being there if they capture any additional views, because you have to assume that if it's a week-to-week comparison, then the direct, if there's any growth, the direct growth had to come from probably that NXT audience, because I don't think you're capturing anybody outside of that NXT audience, because they didn't do anything to draw anybody in this Wednesday to watch AEW. So
yeah, no, I'll be interested. I want to look at the whole week. I want to see NXT, Raw through SmackDown, NXT and Dynamite in the middle, and just see where everybody kind of shakes up, and then watch that over several weeks to see how things normalize.
Yeah.
So WWE filed for the trademark Then Now Forever Together. That's their new tagline at the beginning of shows. Fight TV was acquired by Triller Net. Triller Net is the parent company of Triller, which is another video platform, more social media style video platform. So not sure what this means, if anything, to anybody, but Fight TV is really important in the wrestling world for, I don't know, if you're sampling New Japan or you're sampling Impact or you're sampling Ring of Honor, that's a good place to go sample. Or if you're doing NWA, that's pretty much the only place you can get it. Or if you want to watch The Collective that Travis and I were at, that's where you can get that stuff. So Fight TV, very important. Hopefully this acquisition means nothing but more of the same, or more of the same and better. That's good too. So another news story broke in the last 24 hours. Eva Lise went to Twitter and she basically explained that she was released from Dynamite. She said that she spoke up about mistreatment and then got released. AEW has not commented on this yet, but we have no reason to believe that she hasn't been removed from the company. But the whole story is obviously not there.
It would be a hell of a decision to run this as some kind of an angle, as Eva Lise hasn't been somebody that they've featured on their programming with any kind of real regularity. And I think part of that was, when she came in, there were some personality issues that they had talked about her having. She went on to talk about some of the challenges after she'd made that initial post. She went on to talk about some of the challenges that she's dealt with over the year, to kind of maybe sort of explain or absolve herself from the behavior that she's had outside of the ring or whatever the case may be. But I mean, it was very obvious, and there were several articles written about how she just decided to get hard when she was in the ring with Thunder Rosa. Now, listening to Thunder Rosa on AEW Restricted on the plane ride to your house, she talked about all kinds of Latin wrestlers and how she would enjoy featuring them in different spots and so on and so forth. And Eva Lise's name was not one of those ones that was mentioned. And Eva Lise mentioned somebody specifically that's been singling her out during this process. So I don't know if there's some kind of a heat between Thunder Rosa and different things like that, but maybe there is. And I don't know. It seems like she's jilted because of that. We'll see what the other side of it is. I'm positive that if anything comes up, AEW is just going to say she was released and that's it. I don't think they're going to make an official statement or anything like that.
Maybe we'll see them face each other 10 years from now on Josh Barnett's Bloodsport.
There you go. There you go. I like Thunder Rosa trained MMA fighters' chances.
Yeah. Steve Austin is now going to do talk. Well, he did do Talk as Jericho this week. I haven't listened to the episode. I did listen to and watch the Broken Skull sessions with Chris Jericho, which was really, really interesting. So it'll be interesting to see the flip-flop and reverse on that.
Yeah, we watched most of it in the car waiting for the rain to let up enough so that we could get into Mania without getting too wet.
True. And then the last bit of it we watched before Raw on Monday.
Yeah, and I thought it was a fine show. It's interesting with Chris because I've listened to Chris a bunch of times, so I would say maybe a third of it or so I was already familiar with the material there and stuff. It's just interesting to see how his mind works with regard to how far he's thinking and where he's getting his source material from and how he's utilizing that to create a package. And his stuff is next level thinking. Obviously, people minds like that don't come around. And I've said it before in the past. I think based on his career and stuff, he's probably the best wrestler that's ever competed. There's plenty of people that could certainly challenge me and give me a run for that based on all number of things, but the man's repackaged himself multiple times with multiple different shows and won multiple different belts and remained relevant for 30 years by recreating himself in different ways. And it's hard to find a wrestler that's been as diverse and as adaptive to everything as Chris Jericho has. Everybody else that's had long runs or whatever, they've kind of sort of been the same character, or maybe they've been a heel or face version of that character, but they've remained the same. That hasn't been Chris. So
it's interesting too. Steve, as an interviewer, he did a great job of bringing up subjects that, even if they were subjects we've heard Chris talk about before, there was like new angles and new spins on them. So yeah, a lot of the stuff I'd heard before, but there was an awful lot of stuff or details added that I had not heard before. So good stuff between the both of them.
Absolutely. And he's got his book coming out. I think it's June 23rd or something like that. And he's like only selling it direct or something, like not something that you can find on Amazon right away. So it sounds like he's trying to take all the cash, which is good for him.
Right. Well, he had helpers on this one, so he's probably not going to get.
Yeah, he's paying out some royalties probably. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's the List of Jericho, which, by the way, we're talking about. It's the new book, and it's going to have all his matches ever wrestled. He kept a listing of all that, so
pretty cool.
It's an encyclopedia of Jericho, really.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we did have Dynamite and MLW last night. We had 5 title matches between the two shows. No champions lost their titles. All of the champions retained. Lots of, and I guess on MLW, the only newsworthy thing is that Hammerstone is going to set a press conference for next week's Fusion. I gotta believe he's saying he's going to say he wants Fatu. So we'll see where that goes. But he does say it'll be dynastic.
So. Yeah, which is interesting. I mean, here we are again in another belt versus belt situation. So we'll see where it goes. I mean, it is the match that everybody wants. I guess they're not going to come up with a way to transition that belt off of Hammerstone beforehand, which is, I kind of thought we were going to slow roll into that. But MLW has a really, really tight ship. Court kind of sticks to, let's find 6 guys, let's build a show around that and bring on the other guys to kind of feature them. We got to see a good amount of MLW talent at GCW over the weekend. I mean, we watched Myron Reed and Jordan Oliver a number of times. Calvin Tankman came out a number of times too. So it was good to see that talent on that card. And Leo Rush was all over the place. I don't know. I think we saw Leo Rush 4 times, and one time we got to see the Blackheart version of him, which is a really interesting presentation if you haven't seen it. He's a very, very talented guy. So yeah, we'll see what happens, but I got to assume that that's it, right? Like, where else?
Well, yes, and Court Bauer is also supposed to be on the show to announce television deals and things like that. So it could be that they're waiting for that match for a debut on television, or they're waiting for that match for crowd. I think things may get turned around here over the summer, and they'll be able to do an event with fans, and maybe
they did do a preview video. Now that I'm thinking about it recently, that said we're coming back, and it had shots of the crowd and stuff like that with these kind of different vignettes and stuff. So I would assume, yeah, you're exactly spot on with that. That's where we're headed. I'd love to see them with some kind of a TV deal as well. Like, would be good for sure.
Yeah, in fairness, they are on BeIN Sports, BEIN, but it's not in nearly the amount of homes that we need to be in. So
right.
So Dynamite last night, like we said, all the champions retained. Main event was Matt Hardy versus Darby Allin. Matt Hardy got the win there. Darby Allin got the win. It's the second time I've made that mistake in recent memory. Darby Allin got the win, retained his championship. It was a coffin drop off the scaffolding through the announce table to get the win. But it wasn't without Matt Hardy trying. He did Twist of Fate on a chair with Darby's head wrapped in the chair. They did a ladder spot through Tony Khan's table in the back. Darby Allin just kept coming back for more.
Yeah, really good match put together. We had some Dark Order and some Hardy family stuff going on there too as well, to kind of a lot going on, right? It was a very active match that kind of kept you on the screen the entire time with 2 very good wrestlers and stuff like that. Different media outlets talk about Darby Allin being the one guy that AEW's really created, and the one star that they've made. I don't necessarily disagree with that take. I still, for whatever reason, and maybe it's his size or maybe it's what he does or whatever, he's still not that presence, that superstar to me. I think some of it had to do with probably how little they had him defend the TNT title up until now. So now he's building a little bit more of a resume for me. Fine wrestler, has good matches and stuff like that. This was the first time in recent memory where I feel like he was in any kind of jeopardy of losing that title. So it's nice to see. So hopefully we see a little bit more of that and stuff. Super creative guy, good stuff there all around, and builds a good character, but we don't get to hear him talk all that much. So my buy-in for him is pretty minimal, I would say.
It's interesting that you say it was the first time he's really been in jeopardy. He did have a defense against Brian Cage, but it was his first defense. So I think most people really didn't think he'd be losing it. So
right. Now, if you said that he was fighting Brian Cage next week, I would say, okay, he's in jeopardy now. He's had the belt for a little bit,
Especially with Cage's angles kind of veering off a little bit too. And that was another major story out of Dynamite last night is Team Taz. They've extended their offer. Christian Cage says he's not going to join Team Taz. Meanwhile, Taz also said, Brian, Ricky, why don't you guys stay in the back because you're hotheads? So it looks like Team Taz could maybe split there a bit.
Which was an interesting take. Brian, Ricky, you stay in the back for hotheads. I'm going to send out Will to attack Christian when Christian says no. The conversation back and forth between Taz and Christian was good, though. Like, those guys have a lot of familiarity with each other, so calling him out on his bingo hall money and different things like that, I mean, good for them. And Taz getting him back on his short comment by saying, well, if I was standing on my bank account, then I'd be a foot and a half taller than you are. So it was two guys that know how to chat, and it's good stuff. Like they
Taz
bring in
also
these.
took a shot at Christian for being the lesser of the Edge and Christian tandem. So
yeah, the guys that they bring in from WWE, they're talkers too. They're good promo guys, and they can really, and I think that helps the younger guys. Like, sometimes when I see the guys come up from NXT, I don't think they get enough promo time, and they kind of get in there and they stumble around and they fumble. Like, to circle back real quick, Taya did not, to me, feel very comfortable in that promo this week at all. She didn't. Either she didn't believe the promo, or she didn't practice the promo, or she wasn't used to giving that kind of promo, because that is not the Taya Valkyrie that I remember from Impact. Now there's a ton of pressure. She's new on the show and different things like that. So I'll be interested to see where Frankie Monet goes from there. But that wasn't one of the brighter spots for NXT this week for me.
Which, by the way, Taya Valkyrie did go on to Twitter, which her handle is still Taya Valkyrie. And she said, everybody chill out. I chose the name Frankie Monet. And she explained why she chose each name and stuff like that. So I guess we'll all chill out. I still like Taya Valkyrie better, but
yeah, I would agree. I don't have a problem with Frankie Monet. Yeah. Whatever.
Well, it'll grow on me eventually, but
for sure.
But yeah, no. So I agree that Taya was a little bit off there, and we'll see as she grows into the character how that continues on. But
yeah,
the other major story out of Dynamite was Miro says he can't find Kip Sabian, and he says that's okay. I'm going back out. I'm hunting for gold. If you've got a championship, you better watch out. So it sounds like Miro might go after the tag titles by himself, or he might go for the TNT championship, or Kenny Omega, watch out, Rusev's coming.
Now, is this going to be some kind of conspiracy where Rusev's got him like locked in the back or something like that? Or does that mean that Kip Sabian decided to leave? Like, are we going to see Kip pop up on Impact? Right? Because I think that would be interesting. There's a lot of guys over there that he could have some really good matches for and say, well, you know what, I'm giving myself a little bit of time away from Miro and stuff. So I wonder how much of those words is just words and shooting a promo or actually part of the story. I guess we'll certainly see where that goes and stuff. I've liked Kip's body work and stuff, and Penelope's obviously great with him and things. She's obviously a good wrestler too. So it would be interesting to have the two of them go over to Impact for a little while, because they have some intergender stuff that they've done over there. And, that really hasn't been too big of a feature and regular on AEW. So maybe the two of them wandering over there and, being involved with Caleb and Kay and the rest of those folks over there might be something that we see. So I don't know. I'm loosely hopeful that happens. And yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for Miro to do Miro things.
Miro stuff. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kip can go over to Impact, spend some time over there, and then we'll see Miro and Kip in a battle royal, 5 months from now, and they'll have that moment where they lock eyes and we'll all pop for it. It'll be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Next week on Dynamite, Tay Conti gets her championship match with Hikaru Shida. Shida's had that belt for a long time.
She has, and Tay Conti is building a hell of a record for herself. She's well loved. I think she's still a little bit green in general, but my gosh, her progress in ring, you can tell she's been working. And she's a hard hitter, and she's strong. And the DDT, there's something weird about this match. They've had her go through a bunch of the people that have given Shida fits before in the past with wins and victories and things, and I don't know. It could be possible that given how long they've had this belt on Shida, she could be a transitional champion to get it on to Britt without Shida having to take the pin from Britt. And Ty has a really good moment, and she would shoot to superstardom after that victory, right? Like a lot of people have taken runs at Shida with no success. So it would be big for them, and it will allow that thing to happen with Britt as well. So we'll see.
Yeah, we will. And it comes down to, I think Britt Baker's getting the title shot at Double or Nothing. That's pretty clear as she's trying to slow roll. I'm going to build my record, and I'm now ahead of Red Velvet based on win-loss. So,
and I'm good with that.
Yep.
Let me see Britt Baker in the ring more often, please.
Yep. Powerhouse Hobbs versus Christian Cage next week, coming off the angle we just talked about. That'll be fun. That'll be fine. We'll see. That'll be totally different match than Frankie Kazarian and Christian Cage. So
what a choice for opponent number 2 for Christian, going from Frankie Kazarian, who, they've danced the dance a lot of times, to powerhouse Will Hobbs, fairly young. Like, this is what they talk about, elevating the young stars and stuff. A power wrestler. So Christian must have some faith that he's going to be okay in the ring, getting tossed around with this guy. He looked okay taking a beating this week. I was wondering how fragile he would look and stuff like that. He's fine. He's ready to go. Like, get him in there.
Ricky Starks versus Hangman Page.
God,
Hangman Page is interesting. Hangman's the number 1 contender. So
that is a match. That is a match made in heaven. Ricky Starks and Hangman Page. I'm not sure how it came about, but I love the fact that it's booked.
Yeah. I think Hangman wins here. I think they're going to keep Hangman on top for a long, long time. I don't think we're going Hangman versus Omega at Double or Nothing yet. That seems too early.
Nope, I don't think we're seeing that either. Maybe this is just working Hangman into the. Although with them coming out, with the Dark Order coming out with the Darby match, I thought that Compound was where they're going to head. But maybe this is a Dark Order Team Taz thing as well, right? Like that certainly could happen. But man, yeah, Ricky Starks, let's get him in the ring a little bit more. Let's get him on the mic a little bit more. And Hangman, yeah, I don't see Hangman losing this one, but it'll be a good match.
Yeah, the Dark Order can wage battle on many fronts.
Oh yeah, they've got plenty of people for sure.
Yep. And then finally, Trent versus Penta El Zero Miedo. So there you go.
Probably a good match. This is the first time we're seeing Trent actually back in the ring since his injury, so it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do there. And we'll probably have the rest of the gang. I was surprised we didn't hear Cody at all this week. With the Factory coming out and doing all their stuff, and having a nice run on Dark and Elevation this week with a couple of victories and stuff, and kind of stamping themselves. No commentary from Cody. This harkens back to like
the Brody
when Brody Lee beat him up. He didn't come out immediately and do anything there. So it's interesting that they're saving him and keeping him off the air. I know there's plenty of people that are okay with that. I'm wondering how he's going to address this. And what he's going to say and how they're going to move forward on this thing with the Factory. Factory wasn't out really in this episode of Dynamite either. They just got so much going on. It's hard to fit it in 2 hours with, they did 2 hours of wrestling last night, 2 hours of show, and there was a lot of wrestling on that show. A lot.
Yeah.
So.
And the Factory has been all over the Dark Elevation. Mm-hmm. So they're building a resume for themselves there, I guess, and then promote.
Yep.
But okay, so Impact and NXT UK coming up today. We have a press conference on Impact. We have a press conference for the Rich Swann and Kenny Omega match, Jazz's retirement ceremony, Josh Alexander versus TJP, Matt Cardona and Brian Myers pick your poison for their match at Rebellion. The fallout for Hardcore Justice, of course, and Rebellion's right around the corner. It is a week from this Saturday, or this Sunday, so it is coming up. And then on NXT UK this afternoon, Kenny Williams versus Amir Jordan. That's tag team partners that have split. Nathan Frazier, formerly known as Ben Carter, versus Saxon Huxley. And Noam Dar has the Supernova sessions with Gallus. So plenty of wrestling today. If you thought it was your off day, you are wrong. All right, Travis, it is time. Strap in. It's time for trivia. We're going to bring it to you today from the Body Slam Brigade newsletter. Each week I compile the week's top wrestling stories and put them all in a quick-to-read email that's divided up by company. Over 4,000 people are getting this free newsletter every week. In addition to the top stories, the newsletter keeps you up to date on everything that's going on. So do subscribe now at bodyslambrigade.com. Comes out each Friday at 11 a.m. And we are very close to issue number 50. So stay tuned. That'll be next week. All right, Travis, Backlash 2002. I assume you know nothing about this event.
We'll see.
This is the Backlash following WrestleMania 18, okay, which was Hogan versus Rock, Austin versus Hall. Kind of orient yourself there a bit.
Okay.
So Brock Lesnar, accompanied by Paul Heyman, got a win over this person who was accompanied by Lita. Your choices are Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, Edge, or Chris Jericho.
It's Brock Lesnar?
Yeah.
I'm going to say Jeff Hardy.
It is Jeff Hardy. WWE Hall of Famer Edge lost to this WWE Hall of Famer on this show. Hulk Hogan, Kurt Angle, Great Khali, or Jeff Jarrett?
I'm going to go Great Khali.
It's Kurt Angle.
Perfect.
1 for 2. 1 for 2. That Jeff Hardy one, I thought that one would trip you up because Lita you more closely associate with Matt or Edge. So, okay, so they had a small tournament to crown the number one contender for the WWE Championship, WWF at the time. The Undertaker faced Steve Austin in the finals on this show. Who won the match?
Undertaker.
It was Undertaker. 2 for 3.
I think that's the match that Austin gets concussed and knocked out like 2 seconds in, and he doesn't remember the entire match.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, I think he talked about that in the Broken Skull sessions where, like, you know, he felt bad that he didn't give him more during that match, but he caught a boot in the head coming through the ropes and like did not remember the rest of the match. So I think that's the show where that happened on.
Well, who was the special guest referee for the Austin versus Undertaker match? Was it Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, or J.J. Dillon?
Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, or J.J. Dillon. I'm going to say Ric Flair.
Yep, Ric Flair. Ric Flair. So 3 for 4 so far going into the last question. This man defeated Triple H to become the WWF champion in the final match of the evening. Was it Hollywood Hulk Hogan, Kane, RVD, or Chris Jericho?
Chris Jericho.
It was Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
God damn it.
Yep. Well, 3 for 5. 3 for 5 is a good showing for this era for you.
For me.
For sure.
In trivia.
You win. So there you go. All right. It is time to talk about the Bell Time Club t-shirt.
Look at that shirt.
$22. Travis's came to my house the day he left.
Perfect.
So I have it for him. The shirt's getting pretty good reviews by people who've seen it. John Smith wore it on the show yesterday. $22. Any size is $22. It's free shipping. Soft style shirt. Definitely pick yours up. And then join Joey Jarzanka, Ian Schreier, and Rob DeLuca on Friday nights for the Primetime Rundown. We take you through the world of sports. Our show kicks off at 6 p.m. on the Eastern Observer. And episode number 50 of the Essential Wrestling Podcast is this Tuesday. Al Carl, John Smith, myself, John DeConnie, Gary Mahaffey will be on for another week of updates and highlights in the world of wrestling. Coverage begins at 6 p.m. on Tuesday. So do tune in for that. It's their 50th episode. It's the same week as the 50th issue of the Body Slam Brigade. So we didn't realize until now that we started right about the same time. And then our show, the Daily Wrestling News Show, it is here every day, Monday through Thursday at 10 a.m. So join in on the Daily Wrestling News Show each and every week. And Travis, that's our show.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
It's a strange day for me. I think I'll be back to our regular scheduled Tuesdays moving forward, but with all the craziness happening, we shuffled the deck a little bit, and this is how we ended up. So
yeah,
it's good to be here. I know
different start time, different, everything, but here we are. We did the show, killed the show, had our WrestleMania talk. We're all good to go. We can move forward now and talk about some New Japan stuff next week. So
sounds good.
We should know the finals for the New Japan Openweight Championship.
Yeah, Strong will be really good on Friday. We didn't really mention that, but the Final Four is all strong wrestlers: Hikuleu versus Tom Lawler and Brody King versus Leo Rush. So, if you've got some time on Friday to check that out, it airs just right after SmackDown. So, if you catch a nap between that last hour or whatever, and you got some energy, just throw in another hour of Strong and call it a day.
Yeah. So we'll be talking about that on Tuesday, I'm sure. So until then, we'll see you guys next time. And goodbye.